A warning that this discussion may deal with sensitive themes. This comic book author wields her pen to tackle the heavy topic of sexual abuse of children. Chary Mercado tells us about works like Gasera na Paglingap and the 4 other stories in this book, including Hindi Siya si Santa. Thank you so much for joining us, Chary, on The Final Word.
Thank you so much, Rico, for having me tonight.
Why did you decide to author a 4-part comic book which illustrates the scourge of sexual abuse on children in the Philippines?
Well, sex abuse of children has been a long-time problem in the Philippines. Decades we've been dealing with it. But during the pandemic, I heard that the cases of online sexual abuse of children really exploded. It became practically a cottage industry. So in that situation, I was thinking, what can I do to stop this, these kinds of things from happening, which are just happening in the, in homes, behind where anybody could see them. So, I had to find a way to address it. And I felt that comics was the best way to reach children.
And children who are in schools,
yes.
Right? And this Gasera ng Paglingap has 4 stories within this book. What are the titles of these stories?
Okay, the titles of these stories are, for the first one, Ang Problema ni Prinsesa Trina, about a girl who wants to be a princess. And the term is groomed. Groomed because a foreigner online starts messaging her, convinces her he's a prince, and tries to get her trust that way. Second story is called Ninja. It's about a young boy, who feels that he's a ninja, and he goes patrolling around his village, and he sees that his neighbor at 5 in the morning is shooting a video of her daughters dancing. And it strikes him as odd because the daughters are angry or they're really sad. And he said, why would somebody be dancing at 5 in the morning and why would they be angry? So he tells his mom about that, and his mom realizes what's going on and reports it to the police. The other stories...
The 4th story.
Yeah. That's the second story. The third story is Hindi Siya si Santa Claus.
Yeah.
Again, about a foreigner in a typical Filipino town, and he sort of buys the friendship of all the little boys in town by offering them chocolates and candies and letting them play with his gadgets in his house. And the last is this story, Ang Balbal, which is about a boy who is, I guess, attacked by his uncle in his house. So it deals
These are real-life stories.
Well, these are amalgamations of different stories that I have read, case files that I've read. And they're the different kinds of abuses that are commonplace. They happen in the community, in the home, and online, different places.
And how are your books being distributed to the various educational institutions so our children and our parents will know more about these stories?
Well, I think the problem is since it's such sensitive material, and we really want to make sure that children understand what is sex abuse and when is the line crossed.
Put it in the right context.
Yeah, right in the context, and they know what to do if something happens. It has to be read to them by a storyteller who's equipped to give them that information. So we really decided to put it through either schools or through NGOs where they have social workers who work in the community. So far, that's how I'm doing it, on a school by school and NGO by NGO basis, because the training and the relationship with the storyteller has to be in place.
Because when the storyteller delivers the narrative,
yes,
it has to be very sensitive as well, right? To the needs of the kids, to the parents, and it has to be thoroughly explained.
Yes, thoroughly explained, because they have to understand this is abuse. Sadly, many times the perpetrators of this abuse are people in their family, people that kids trust. And so they do not perceive it as anything wrong, like any crime is being committed to them. And that's exactly why it has to be a teacher or a person of credibility to say, no, this person that you trust is in fact hurting you, is in fact doing something that is going to have major consequences to you. So we have to, I guess, intervene with somebody who's just as credible or more credible than the parents.
And how are you reaching out to all of these NGOs and educational institutions? Is it across the archipelago?
the aim is to put it across the archipelago, because when I was reading the UNICEF study on the OSEC, it shows that it is really spread. The problem, I mean, is spread all over rural and urban areas. So it you know, all corners of the Philippines. Wherever you have a Wi-Fi connection, it's happening. And so how I am doing it initially, like I said, school by school basis, but I would love to have the help of more institutions that have a nationwide grasp of the situation so that we could roll it out much faster.
But Chary, was it difficult to find a publisher for your comic books with this very sensitive issue on sexual abuse on children?
Yes, it is very difficult. It's a very heavy and hard and dark topic to write about, to read about, and of course my intent is to give it to it's an education campaign for the poorest of the poor children. Now, if I was going to sell them comics, then you know they don't have any money to buy these kinds of things. So really, the intent is I have to give this away, and so it is hard to find a publisher who wants to give things away.
Yeah.
And I was very thankful. I found Historia Studios. They were making history games and other like learning materials on Philippine history. And they were giving them away. So I said, these are the people. It's the artists Stradel Tapaya and Marina Cruz. They have that same mentality that we have to invest in education, and they were putting their money where their mouth was. So I approached them, and instantly they, you know, agreed to publish it. Publish 1,000 full-color copies just off the bat.
And of course, Rodel Tapaya and Marina Cruz are well-known visual artists here in the country. Who are the artists in these comic books?
Well, I have, for the first series, so I hired illustrators from Ang Inc., the Philippine Illustrator community, and it was, but there's one there who is a student, Mike Aguiluz. He's a senior in Ateneo High School. And then the other three, Marks Fidel, Dion Kong, and Mariko Nakamura, they are all professional illustrators.
And Chary, aside from your advocacy against sexual abuse on children, you're also hands-on in matching parents with abandoned children.
Yes, I'm also work for it's called, what used to be called the Inter-Country Adoption Board, where like today, we matched parents from abroad who want children, adopted children, and Filipino children who are not matched here locally. So that is something that's an interdisciplinary effort that we do every week.
And this Gasera ng Paglingap is the first volume of 4 stories. Are you planning to come up with a second volume of another 4 or maybe even more stories about, you know, child sexual abuse in the country?
Right. Yes, actually, I'm already more than halfway done with the second anthology. This one is, I would say, the kiddie version, much lighter. That one is even heavier. It's more explicit, I guess, on what the problem is. So maybe those will be for older children. But yes, that's already in the works. It's 3 stories down, 1 more to go.
But we just cannot rely on comic books to educate, you know, society about the evils of child sexual abuse in the country. In your view, is the government doing enough to educate our kababayans?
Actually, because this is a new problem that really exploded during the pandemic, maybe the consciousness is not there yet to put it in the curriculum, or to put, like, you know, maybe I would put a whole DSWD department, you know, just addressed on this. But because it's a new problem, I don't think we're there yet. But there is awareness that, you know, that the Philippines is being singled out in the international community as the source of a lot of child porn. So there is awareness that we have a very serious situation on our hands.
If they want to know more about Gasera ng Paglingap, where can they get these books?
Well, the easiest way, you can just email me, and I can arrange for, you know, to brief your storytellers, like whoever it is will be disseminating the stories, and we can take it from there.
And the email is?
Chary Merc, CHARYMERC @gmail.com.
Thank you so much, Chary, for taking on this fight and educating our kababayans on the scourge of sexual abuse on children in the Philippines. And congratulations as well to Historia Studios, the publishers.
Yes.
Chary Mercado, author of Gasera ng Paglingap.
Thank you so much, Rico.